Good morning, friends. Welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Kat, and if you're new here, we've been baking our way through Some of My Best Friends Are Cookies by Emelia Jackson. Today's recipe is hazelnut praline squiggles, and we've got quite a lot going on here today. I don't know if you can see out the window, but we are getting our fence replaced. So it's quite noisy, and I've got the dog inside. So what we're going to do first up, I've got my monster biscuits out of the freezer. They're just coming to room temperature, and then I'm going to bake those so that I've got something to offer all the guys that are working here today. And then what we're going to do is start on these biscuits. Probably I'll have to do most of it as a voiceover because there's a lot of tools and puppy and everything. So let's get started with these, and then we'll get started with today's biscuits. So this recipe is a food processor recipe. So the very first thing that we're going to do is blitz down 240 grams of hazelnuts to make some hazelnut meal. You can, of course, use store-bought hazelnut meal, but because it calls for roasted hazelnuts, you just get a more deep nutty flavor if you grind your own. So we're going to add the blitzed up nuts and 150 grams of plain flour with 140 grams of caster sugar and 45 grams of corn flour and half a teaspoon of salt. So we're just going to pulse that until that's all combined. And then we're going to add 140 grams of softened butter, 1 egg yolk, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and we're just going to run that through the food processor until the mixture forms a ball. It does say that if it's sandy, then that means your butter wasn't soft enough, and just keep mixing it and it will form a ball. Then once our dough is formed, we're going to roll it out to 3 to 4 millimeters thick, and then we're going to cut 5 centimeter circles out of the dough. You want to pop these in the fridge for half an hour so that they don't spread, and then bake them at 180 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes. We need to leave those biscuits to cool while we make the praline. So to make the praline, we need to put 150 grams of hazelnuts into a baking tray lined with baking paper and 150 grams of caster sugar into a saucepan. So we're going to cook the sugar over a medium heat until it starts to melt, and then we want to stir it until it is a dark amber color. We're going to pour the melted sugar over the hazelnuts, and then we're going to leave those to set for, it'll take about half an hour. Once that's all set, then we're going to break up it's basically a hazelnut brittle at this point. So we're going to break that up and put it into the food processor, and we're going to mix that until the praline forms. So it says in the book that the praline will liquefy, and that the time that takes will depend on how strong your food processor is. Mine mixed for about 17 minutes. And then the next thing that it says is it describes it as a praline paste. So I'm not sure if I had kept mixing it, if it would have got to a more liquidy consistency. but mine was definitely more of a paste consistency. So with the Praline paste, we're going to put that into a piping bag, and then we're going to pipe about 1 teaspoon of the paste onto each biscuit and sprinkle it with some chopped hazelnuts. So about 100 grams of hazelnuts that you've chopped up, and then we sprinkle those onto the Praline, and then we put those completed biscuits into the freezer for about 15 minutes to completely set. Then we're going to get 400 grams of tempered chocolate. So the way that you do that, you put 200 grams into the bowl, you melt that, and then you add another 200 grams and mix it until it is all melted. We dip each biscuit into the chocolate, scrape the base of the biscuit over the rim of the bowl to get rid of all the excess chocolate, and then we temper 100 grams of white chocolate and pipe squiggles, or just use a spoon like I did, and zigzag some squiggles of chocolate over the top of each biscuit. So my fence is finished, which means I can go back to speaking normally instead of having a voiceover. I'll still have to voice over all of the bits that I've already recorded, of course, but that's okay. So I think if I had only 28, I would probably have been okay with the amount of chocolate, but I was definitely going to run out. So I have just melted the extra 50 grams that was in my packet, and I'm just going to spoon some over the top of these ones to try and hold the biscuits and the topping together, which is not how it's supposed to be, but I do have many more biscuits than I was supposed to have, and I've run out of chocolate. So I'm just going to leave these to set on the bench. They shouldn't take too long because I tempered the chocolate, and then we'll come back and give them a taste test. So I'm going to try, I think, one of the squiggle ones, just because that's not how they're supposed to look. But I think they're cute anyway. Obviously, they are supposed to look like this, but I ran out of chocolate. So let's give them a try. I really like the biscuit. It's got a really good hazelnut flavour. I think actually the biscuit with some chocolate ganache would be perfect. These are very, very nice, very rich. I can only imagine that the ones that are completely covered in dark chocolate are going to be even richer. But I think that regardless of which type people are eating, they will be quite popular. Thanks for being here with me today as we made these hazelnut praline squiggles. If you would like, I will pop another video here that you can enjoy between now and my next upload. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye for now.